The clink of champagne glasses echoed around the lavish restaurant table. My brother, Ethan, beamed under the attention. I, Amara, sat at the far end, the forgotten daughter. My father, Richard, stood, his voice booming with pride. To my son, the new vice president. Everyone cheered. Then his eyes slid to me, cold and dismissive. He's what you should have been, Amara. The laughter was a physical blow. My throat tightened, my smile felt painted on. I focused on my napkin, wishing I could disappear. Then Ethan's CEO, Mr. Miller, cleared his throat. And on that note, he announced, we have one more piece of exciting news. He paused for dramatic effect. Effective immediately, we are merging with Whitman Consulting. The air left my lungs. Whitman Consulting. The firm I had secretly joined 6 months ago after leaving my father's company. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and silent humiliation. My father's laugh echoed in my mind. I remembered the countless times he had praised Ethan while dismissing my ambitions. I had left his company to escape the constant comparisons, to build something on my own terms. Now, by a twist of fate, our worlds were colliding. The merger wasn't just a business move, it was poetic justice. They thought I was the failure, the quiet one who didn't belong in their corporate world. A slow, steady resolve replaced my hurt. If they thought I was invisible, I would let them choke on my success. I walked into my quiet apartment, the silence a welcome contrast to the noisy dinner. The game had just begun, and they didn't even know I was a player. A week later, the merger meeting was in full swing. The conference room was packed with faces from both companies. I kept my head down, hoping to blend in. Then my boss, Mr. Evans, the CEO of Whitman, spoke up. For a smooth transition, we need a liaison who understands both cultures. His eyes found mine in the crowd. Amara will lead this integration team. A wave of whispers rippled through the room. My father, sitting with Ethan, looked stunned. Ethan's smile was strained. I would be working directly with them. The shock on their faces was priceless. Later, Mr. Evans pulled me aside. The board is watching, he confided. We're grooming someone from your side for a major leadership role post-merger. Do well here. The unspoken promise hung in the air. The first joint meeting was a power struggle. Ethan immediately tried to dominate, interrupting me and dismissing my points. The data doesn't support that, Amara, he said with a condescending smile. I stayed calm, my voice steady. Actually, Ethan, if you look at the Q3 analytics on page 7, it clearly does. I presented the facts with a poise that silenced him. The other executives noticed the stark contrast between my professionalism and his bluster. After the meeting, my phone buzzed. It was my father. Don't embarrass your brother, he said, his voice tight. You're lucky to even be in that room. Remember your place. He hung up before I could reply. The old hurt flared, but it was quickly smothered by a new, fierce determination. His words sent me back to my teenage years. I had come home with a perfect report card, eager for praise. Journalism, my father had scoffed, seeing my elective. A useless hobby. You'll never make it in the real world if you don't play politics. Meanwhile, Ethan had partied his way through his first year of college, failing several classes. My father had simply made a call, a family favor, and gotten him a clean slate at a new school. The memory was a fresh wound. Back in my office, I stared at my reflection. He wanted me to play politics? Fine. But I would do it my way. I would win with ethics, hard work, and integrity, not with his brand of arrogant ego. I would build a legacy he could never tear down. I made a point of connecting with people, not just managing them. I noticed Sarah, a junior analyst who was often overlooked. I took time to mentor her, showing her kindness others reserved for executives. Ethan mocked my approach. You're too soft, Amara. Business isn't about making friends. But my softness built a network of loyal allies. While reviewing merger documents with Sarah, she pointed out a tiny inconsistency in the financial projections. We dug deeper together. That small act of mentorship led to a massive breakthrough. We identified a critical flaw in the supply chain integration that, if left unchecked, would have cost the company millions. My empathy had uncovered a disaster. I compiled my findings into a detailed report, outlining the flaw and proposing a solution. I emailed it to the integration committee, including Ethan. The next day, in the executive briefing, Mr. Miller praised Ethan. And thanks to Ethan's sharp eye, we've identified a major cost-saving opportunity. He presented my slides, my words, my solution. My father sat in the front row, beaming with pride. I felt a hot flush of betrayal. I said nothing. After the meeting, Mr. Evans found me at my desk. He saw the look on my face. I know, he said quietly. Let him have the rope, Amara. Arrogant men always hang themselves with it. I nodded, understanding the wisdom in waiting for the right moment. As the merger progressed, the stress began to show. Ethan's arrogant demands alienated the Whitman team. He was rude to assistants and dismissive of others' ideas. I did the opposite. I listened, I collaborated, and I quietly documented every instance of his unprofessional behavior and every detail of the integration. I was building a case without anyone knowing. One evening, working late, I passed the open door of a conference room. My father was inside, on the phone. Ethan's showing real leadership, he boasted. Amara? She's just a staffer. She'll never amount to much. The words shouldn't have hurt anymore, but they did. I swallowed the pain and walked back to my desk, my resolve hardening. The next morning, Mr. Evans called me into his office. The board is impressed with your work, Amara. They see the calm you bring to the team. He leaned forward, his expression serious. They've decided to create a new head of operations position to lead the merged entity. The choice is between you and Ethan. The air crackled with the magnitude of his words. This was it. The moment everything had been leading toward. It was no longer just about proving my father wrong or getting revenge. It was about my destiny. I had earned this shot, and I was not going to let it slip away. I thanked him and left, my mind already racing with strategy. Ethan must have felt threatened. A week before our project proposals were due, he helpfully gave me a set of market analysis files. This should save you some time, he'd said with a fake smile. I used the data in my final draft. During my presentation to the mid-level managers, Mr. Evans and my father were present. Halfway through, Ethan raised his hand. I'm sorry, Amara, but these numbers are completely wrong. Did you even check your sources? The data was indeed flawed, making my entire proposal look sloppy and unprofessional. Heat rushed to my face. My father shook his head, a familiar sneer on his lips. I told you she wasn't built for this, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Humiliation burned, but I didn't panic. Instead of confronting Ethan, I went straight to the IT department. I asked my friend, Ben, to check the file's metadata. He confirmed my suspicion. The files Ethan gave me had been altered the night before he sent them. The original, correct data was still in the system, untouched. I gathered everything, the corrupted files, the timestamps, and even a witness from IT who could verify the tampering. I brought the evidence to Mr. Evans. He reviewed it all, his face grim. This is serious, he said. But we don't play our hand yet. We'll expose him when it matters most, in front of everyone who needs to see the truth. My mother hosted a family dinner, trying to smooth things over. Ethan held court, bragging about his brilliant strategy and the upcoming leadership decision. It's in the bag, he announced, winking at our father. Then he turned to me. Too bad about that presentation, Amara. Maybe you're just not cut out for the big leagues. My parents said nothing. I put down my fork and smiled a calm, easy smile that seemed to unnerve him. Let's see who the company trusts to lead next quarter, Ethan. My father scoffed. Still living in delusion, Amara? I raised my water glass in a toast, looking directly at him. Delusion or preparation, Dad? Time will tell. The table fell into an uncomfortable silence. The formal assignment came down from the board. Both Ethan and I were to prepare a comprehensive proposal for the new operations division. The winner would become the head of operations. Ethan gloated openly in the office, already acting like the job was his. I simply nodded and got to work. For the next 2 weeks, I lived and breathed that proposal. I worked late into the night, fueled by every past humiliation, every dismissive comment, every time I had been told I was not enough. This was more than a job, it was my chance to rewrite my story. My proposal was not just good, it was visionary, built on a foundation of integrity and a deep understanding of both companies. The boardroom was full for the presentation showdown. Ethan went first. His presentation was all flash, buzzwords, expensive graphics, and bold promises. He talked about aggressive growth and dominating the market. When the board asked how he would handle the existing team's morale, he stumbled, giving a vague answer about necessary restructuring. Then it was my turn. I was calm, detailed, and focused on sustainable growth, team integration, and the specific flaw I had found and fixed. I spoke with a quiet confidence that commanded respect. The board was engaged, asking thoughtful questions I answered with ease. Just as they were about to deliberate, my father stormed in. "You can't seriously be considering her over Ethan," he demanded. Mr. Evans stood up, his authority filling the room. "Actually, Richard, before we conclude, there's a critical item to review regarding integrity." He turned on the projector. It displayed the evidence I had gathered, the altered files, the timestamps, the IT report. "It appears Ethan deliberately sabotaged his sister's work with falsified data." A wave of gasps filled the room. Ethan's face went sheet white. My father's face turned a deep, furious red. He looked from the evidence to Ethan's guilty expression. I didn't say a word. I simply sat calmly, meeting my father's stunned gaze, letting the truth speak for itself. The foundation of his perfect world was cracking apart. The fallout was swift and severe. Ethan was suspended immediately, pending a full investigation. My father, in a blind panic, tried to use his old influence. He called board members, threatened Mr. Evans, and tried to downplay the youthful mistake. But his power was gone. The merger had diluted his authority. Mr. Evans met him in the hallway, his voice cold and final. "Mr. Whitman, you're not in charge here anymore. Your son committed fraud, and your attempts to cover it up are noted." I watched from my office door as my father seemed to shrink, the reality of his powerlessness finally dawning on him. The great Richard Whitman had been dethroned. The official offer came the next week. The head of operations role was mine. Mr. Evans handed me the contract with a proud smile. But as I held the paper, I felt a moment of hesitation. I had wanted this so badly, but now it was tied to my brother's downfall and my father's humiliation. I didn't want my leadership to be defined by revenge. That evening, I drove to my childhood home and just sat in the car, looking at the house where I had felt so small for so long. I made a vow to myself. I would rise, but I would do it with grace. I would be the leader I had always needed, not the one my father had tried to create. The press release announcing my promotion was published in the business section. Colleagues flooded my inbox with congratulations. My father did not call. He sent a single, cold text, "You've destroyed this family." I didn't respond. The final twist came when I was asked to represent the company at the annual industry gala, the same high-profile event my father had always attended as the face of the company. The invitation felt like a final seal of approval, a public declaration of my new status. I bought a new dress, not to impress him, but to celebrate myself. A few days later, my father showed up at my new office. He didn't knock. "You humiliated your family," he started, his voice trembling with anger. "You turned them against Ethan. Was it worth it?" I put down my pen and looked at him, truly looked at him, without fear or anger. No, Dad, I replied, my voice quiet but firm. I just stopped letting you humiliate me first. He stared at me, his arguments failing him. For the first time, he saw not his disappointing daughter, but a force he could no longer control. He turned and walked out without another word. I began my new role by focusing on the people. I promoted Sarah, the junior analyst I had mentored. I implemented transparent policies and valued honesty over sycophancy. The company culture began to shift. The anxiety of the merger faded, replaced by a new energy and collaboration. The same colleagues who had once politely ignored me now sought my advice and guidance. My name became synonymous not with drama, but with quiet strength and undeniable competence. I had built the team my father always talked about but never truly managed to create, because he never valued the people in it. The investigation into Ethan concluded. He was fired for gross misconduct and effectively blacklisted from other major firms in the industry. My father spiraled, blaming everyone but himself. He lost friends and his remaining influence. One afternoon, I visited Ethan at his apartment. He was a shadow of his former self. I'm not here to gloat, I said. I'm here to tell you to start over. Be better. You don't have to be the person Dad wanted you to be. You can just be you. He didn't thank me, but he listened. It was a small seed of humanity in the wreckage of our family. My father, however, was unforgiving. He showed up at my house, furious. You ruined him, he yelled. Your own brother. You've shattered this family, and for what? A title? I stood my ground calmly. You shattered it years ago, Dad. I just picked up the pieces and built something new. He told me I was dead to him, that I would regret my betrayal. As he yelled, I simply turned and walked to my car. You'll regret this, he screamed after me. I got in, started the engine, and allowed myself a soft, genuine smile. I already don't, I whispered to the empty car. I was finally, completely free. Months later, the merged company was thriving. Our profits were up, employee satisfaction was at an all-time high, and my strategies were being praised in business journals. I was invited to speak on a national business leadership panel, the very one my father had always dreamed of Ethan attending. I sat on the stage, under the bright lights, feeling a deep sense of peace. The moderator began my introduction. And next, we have Amara Whitman, the visionary leader behind the remarkably successful Whitman-Miller merger. The rest was drowned out by applause. The irony was perfect. He had used our name for his glory, now I was using it for mine. At a charity gala later that year, I saw my father across the room. He looked older, smaller, and he was alone. He caught my eye and, after a moment's hesitation, walked over. He stood awkwardly, not meeting my gaze. You did good with the company, he mumbled. It was the closest I would ever get to an apology. I nodded kindly. Thank you, Dad. There was nothing else to say. I didn't stay to make small talk. I excused myself and walked back to my table, my head high. My dignity, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. That night, I hosted a small dinner for my team, my real work family. We laughed and celebrated our shared success. As they raised a glass to toast me, my mind drifted back to that promotion party, to my father's cutting words. He's what you should have been. I looked around the table at the respectful, happy faces of my team. I had built this. I had earned this. I smiled to myself, the memory now powerless to hurt me. I whispered the words only I could hear, the final chapter in my story. I became what you never could see. It was a story not of bitterness, but of quiet, empowering success.